We say the Eucharist represents his sacrifice on Calvary, that they form one single sacrifice, the Eucharist and his offering on Calvary. We say the Mass is primarily, first and foremost, a sacrifice because it represents the sacrifice of Jesus. If we look in the scriptures here in Luke's account of the institution in chapter 22, it says, "And when the hour came, he sat at table and the apostles with him." Now this is the night, he's about to have the Last Supper. This is the night before he was to die, the night before Calvary. So he has this tremendous gift of the Eucharist. He has a ministry of 3 years. He waits to the very end. There's a meaning to the fact that it was done the night before he was to die, because it's linked with that sacrifice on Calvary. We say it's one single sacrifice, that it forms one piece. And in fact, if you look at the words of institution, there's sacrificial language in them. It says, "And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he said, 'Take this and divide it among yourselves. For I tell you that from now on I shall not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes.' And he took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, 'This is my body which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.' And likewise the cup after supper, saying, 'This cup which is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood.'" You have the taking, you have the breaking, you have the bread being given up, the cup being poured out. That is language of sacrifice. So the Eucharist is a sacrifice. And we say that this line, he says, "Do this in remembrance of me," that also suggests that it's a memorial. Because remember, he's doing this at the Passover meal. And for the Jews, that Passover meal was, in some sense, a making presence of these saving events that God did for his beloved Israel. That when God stretched forth his hands and liberated the Israelites from the captivity of the Egyptians, that was God's work. He intervened in history. When they would celebrate that Passover, they believed it was more than just a remembering in the mind. They thought it was, in some sense, a making presence of these events. Now we say that in our Catholic faith even to a greater realism, that it truly makes present sacramentally, and in some way you could say even physically, in a very real sense, making present the sacrifice of Christ. So we say, "Do this in remembrance of me," making it present, and also that's the moment of ordination for those men, that they were made priests at that moment to carry on this sacrifice throughout history.